Well, picking up on that now, I'm joined by the man who, as director of the CIA, oversaw the killing of Osama bin Laden, the former US Defense Secretary, Leon Panetta. Mr. Panetta, thank you so much for joining Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Good to be with you, Piers.
Just discussing there with the ambassador here in London about the situation in Ukraine. Putin is slowly but surely barreling his way through that country. What more should the world be doing to try and stop him?
Well, we're 100 days into this war. We really have been through what I call three stages of the war. The first was a failed invasion by Russia. The world stood up, the Ukrainians stood up, and were able to essentially stop the Russians from achieving their goal of getting the capital and bringing Ukraine down. The second stage is siege warfare and tremendous destruction and killing of innocent men, women, and children to try to break the will of the Ukrainian people. That failed as well. And the third stage is the one we're in now, which is this war of attrition, with Russia trying to gain territory in the east in order to have leverage, I assume, for negotiations. How long that war of attrition goes on, no one really knows. It could continue for weeks and months. It could result in negotiation, which is what the world obviously hopes for, or it could escalate into something worse. The decision as to what happens really rests with Putin and nobody else right now.
Henry Kissinger suggested that Ukraine may have to cede territory to end the war. The Ukrainians obviously don't want to do that. But is that something which perhaps becomes inevitable the longer this goes on?
I think President Biden was right in saying that that decision has to rest with Ukraine and with Zelensky. They're the ones that are fighting and dying, putting their lives on the line every day in order to defend their country. I think it's up to them to decide what the basis of any possible negotiation should be. I don't think anybody ought to tell them what they should or should not do. They're the ones that have fought for the right to decide what will be on the table should they negotiate.
If you'd still been Defense Secretary or even running the CIA, you know, every sinew in my body wants to attack Vladimir Putin, to take him on, to kick him out of Ukraine, to use the might of the NATO military, the most powerful ever seen. But he's been able to, so far, successfully rattle his nuclear saber as a kind of warning card to keep people away. How long should we sustain that kind of threat where he simply says, if you do anything proactively here, I will nuke you?
Look, I don't think we can be intimidated by Putin. Putin has sensed weakness on the part of the West for a long time. That's why he went into the Crimea. That's why he went into Syria and Libya. And that's why he attacked this country with a very bold cyber attack against our election systems, because he sensed weakness. I think for the first time, the United States and our allies have come together in a unified way to say that Putin will pay a price for his aggression. And by providing the weapons necessary for the Ukrainians, by imposing the sanctions that are really hitting the Russian economy seriously, and by strengthening our position in the NATO countries. I think the U.S. and our allies have done the right thing in trying to stop Putin. Putin needs to be stopped. Bullies need to be stopped. And the message that went to Russia is frankly the same message that needs to go to China and North Korea and Iran and other adversaries. We have got to come together as allies in order to stop this kind of aggression.
I want to pivot just briefly. It's over 10 years, incredibly, since Osama bin Laden was killed in that remarkable raid. You were immortalised in a massively successful movie, Zero Dark 30, played by James Gandolfini, who apparently had to write to you before it even aired, apologising for everything, he said, including his wig. So I want to play you a clip and then come for your reaction.
I'm about to go look the president in the eye. And what I'd like to know, it's where everyone stands on this thing. Now, very simply, Is he there or is he not there?
I got to say, I thought you came out of that brilliantly, and I don't know you, but if I was you, I would have loved all that.
Well, I remember when Gandolfini wrote me a note and said, you probably don't like the way I played this role, but I really admire you. So I called him up. I met him at some events, and he said, I hope you like the way I played it. I said, look, it's a movie. I'm glad they picked an Italian to play an Italian. That made me feel good. And he came back and he said, he said, they made me use a lot of four-letter words. And I said, well, that's the one thing you got right.
It's actually a great film. I think that the best thing imaginable is when someone makes a big movie like that is that it's good. And I think not only was it good, but you had this amazing actor playing you. And as I say, I thought you came out as badass, Mr. Panetta. And that's really how a former boss of the CIA wants to be, right?
Well, it was a tremendous experience, and I give a lot of credit to both the military and intelligence people for coming together, working together, because that was the most effective way to counter terrorism.
Did you still get, just finally, do you still get people thanking you personally when they see you for taking out bin Laden?
I think the most rewarding thing that ever happens to me is particularly when a family of those that were killed on 9/11, when members of that family see me and thank me for bringing justice to bin Laden for what he did to our country. That's the most rewarding feeling of all.
Well, politicians get a lot of a bad rap over time, but that was a stunning moment, I think, for America, for that administration, for you personally. And so, 11 years on now, isn't it? Thank you for what you did for the world, because you took out the worst terrorist in the world, and that's got to be a good feeling.
It was very important to send a message to the world that nobody attacks our country and gets away with it. And I was very proud of that operation.
Leon Panetta, great to talk to you. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you.